I gave them my youth, my strength, my sleepless nights. Every dream I once had quietly faded behind the sound of their laughter. And for years, that was enough. My name is Grace. I'm 63 years old, and I've spent almost every day of my life in this same house, the one my late husband built with his bare hands. The paint is faded now, the roof leaks when it rains, and the floor creaks like an old friend whispering my secrets. But to me, it's home because every corner still carries the sound of my children growing up. Back then, money was always short. I sold bread at dawn, sewed clothes till midnight, and sometimes skipped meals so they wouldn't have to. People used to tell me, "Grace, you work too hard." But when I saw my children sleeping peacefully, I thought no effort is too much for love. There were 3 of them: Daniel, the eldest, quiet but determined; Mia, the middle child, full of dreams and laughter; and Leo, my youngest, always clinging to my skirt, afraid I'd disappear. They were my world, my reason to wake up, my reason to keep breathing when my husband passed away so suddenly. After the funeral, I remember sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, wondering how I would raise them alone. Daniel came to me that night, barely 16, and said, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll take care of everything." And he did for a while. He studied hard, got into a good school. Mia helped with the chores. Leo tried to make me laugh every morning. Those were the good years, the ones you don't know are precious until they're gone. The kind where love fills the cracks that money can't. But as they grew older, I noticed something: the more they succeeded, the less they saw me. I told myself it was normal. That's what every mother wants, right? To see her children fly higher than she ever could. Still, sometimes, late at night, I would sit by the window, watching the streetlights, waiting to hear their laughter in the hallway again. It never came. I kept the same habits. Cooked breakfast for everyone at 6, waited at the table. Sometimes Daniel would rush out saying, "Mom, I have a meeting." Mia would grab her bag, whispering, "Love you, Mom, I'll eat later." And Leo, my sweet Leo, would be too busy on his phone to even look up. One morning, I realized I had been talking to myself for 10 minutes straight. The chairs were empty. The plates were cold. Only my voice echoed in the kitchen, the same kitchen that once overflowed with laughter. That's when it hit me. I gave them everything: my time, my youth, my energy, and in return, they gave me distance. Not because they stopped loving me, but because life taught them to move faster than love could follow. Still, I never blamed them. That's what mothers do. We forgive even when no one says sorry. We keep cooking, keep waiting, keep hoping that one day the front door will open and we'll hear, "Mom, dinner smells amazing." But days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The house that once laughed now whispered with loneliness. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I still believed that family never truly forgets, they just lose their way for a while. So I kept the lights on every night, not because I was afraid of the dark, but because I wanted them to see the glow when they finally came home. If this story touches your heart, remember this: you are not alone. Somewhere out there, another mother, another son, another daughter is learning to love again. If this story resonates with you, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. You are not alone, and if you believe family still matters, subscribe to Voices of Auntie Tay for more family drama stories that heal and inspire. The years moved faster than I could keep up with. Daniel became a manager at a large company in the city. Mia opened her own small design studio, and Leo, the baby I once carried on my hip, got a job in another town. They had grown, just like I always prayed they would. They had dreams, friends, homes of their own. But somewhere in that beautiful progress, something quiet disappeared. It began with small things. Breakfast skipped, calls cut short, texts that said, "I'll call you later," and never came. At first, I didn't notice. I thought it was just life, everyone busy, chasing their own light. But one evening, as I sat in the living room knitting a scarf, I realized the house was too quiet for too long. No footsteps, no laughter, no voices calling Mom, only the ticking clock on the wall and the sound of my own heart counting the seconds of silence. I tried to fill the space. I cooked their favorite meals. Daniel loved roast chicken. Mia loved my apple pie. Leo always asked for pancakes on Sunday mornings. I cooked them all. The smell filled the whole house, like it used to when they were kids. But when I called, no one answered. Their rooms were neat, their beds untouched. The food stayed warm until it turned cold. And still, I waited. The next morning, I found a note on the fridge. "Work late tonight, don't wait up." No signature, no heart, just words, practical, short, distant. I told myself it was okay, that they were doing what I raised them to do, to work hard, to succeed. But still, my heart whispered, when did success become more important than love? One Sunday, Daniel finally came home. He sat at the table, phone in hand, talking business while eating. I tried to speak. How's work? He nodded absently. Busy, Mom, really busy. When he left, I looked at his half-eaten food and thought, maybe he didn't even taste it. Mia came home next. She looked beautiful, elegant, confident, the woman I always hoped she'd become. But when I tried to talk about the old days, she smiled politely and said, "Oh, Mom, you worry too much. You need to get out more." Then she left to meet friends. And Leo? He didn't come home at all. That night, I sat by the window again, the same spot I used to wait for them when they were little. Back then, I waited to see them running from school with backpacks bouncing. Now I waited for the sound of a car, a door opening, a voice saying, "I'm home." But the street stayed empty. The next morning, I saw Daniel's car drive away, Mia's alarm ringing upstairs, and Leo's old room still covered in dust. I made breakfast anyway. Not because I thought they'd eat, but because it felt wrong not to. Cooking had become my way of loving them. A silent conversation that didn't need replies. Sometimes I'd whisper to the walls, maybe tomorrow will be different. And for a few seconds, I believed it. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. I found an old family album under the coffee table. The pages were yellowed, but the memories still glowed. Daniel in his school uniform, holding a trophy. Mia in her prom dress, spinning like a dream. Leo asleep on my lap, his fingers wrapped around mine. I smiled, and tears rolled down my cheeks before I even realized. Not because I was sad, but because I missed the sound of those moments. Later that night, Daniel came home. He looked tired, worn out, his tie loosened. He walked past me without a word, heading straight to his room. But then he stopped, turned back, and said softly, "Mom, do we still have that old soup you used to make?" I froze, then smiled. "Yes," I said. "Always." He nodded, sat at the table, and for the first time in a long time, ate slowly without his phone. And for a brief moment, I saw my boy again. The boy who once said, "I'll take care of everything." Maybe silence doesn't mean they've stopped loving you. Maybe it just means they've forgotten how to say it. And maybe it's a mother's love that reminds them how. If this story touches something in your heart, you're not alone. Many families forget that love needs time, not just success. If you've ever felt this kind of silence, tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to Voices of Auntie Tay for more family drama stories, stories that remind us what truly matters. It was early autumn when I woke up and realized the calendar had turned another page. The number 12 was circled in red, my birthday. For a moment, I smiled. Then I thought, maybe this year will be different. I made tea, wore the blue dress Mia once gave me, and baked a small cake, the same chocolate one my children loved when they were little. The smell filled the whole kitchen, sweet and warm, like old memories returning home. I set the table for 4, out of habit. 4 plates, 4 cups. It looked complete. At 9, Daniel texted, "Busy day, Mom. I'll call tonight. Love you." I smiled anyway. At least he remembered. At 11, Mia posted a photo online, a team lunch with a big smile. Underneath, her caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings." No mention of me. No tag. No happy birthday, Mom. And Leo, my youngest, the one who used to sneak into my room at midnight to say, "Happy birthday first, Mom." Nothing. Not a call. Not a message. Just silence. Still, I waited. I waited because mothers always wait. We wait for the cry of a baby, for the sound of a key turning, for the laughter to return home. By evening, the tea had turned cold. The cake was untouched. The candles, new and hopeful, still waited to be lit. I sat at the table and whispered to myself, "It's okay, they're busy. I'll just light one candle, for myself." In waited no found stanza. The flame flickered softly, and I thought about every year before this one. The parties filled with laughter, the drawings they made as children, the hugs, the little voices saying, "You're the best mom in the world." Now, the only sound was the clock ticking and the faint hum of the refrigerator. When the candle burned halfway, I leaned closer and said quietly, "Maybe mothers don't get birthdays. Maybe we just get more years to love our children." Then, for the first time in a long while, I cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just soft tears that fell into my tea. It wasn't anger. It wasn't disappointment. It was simply the weight of being forgotten by the very hearts you built your life around. Suddenly, I heard a knock at the door. I wiped my face quickly and stood up, heart pounding. Could it be? But when I opened the door, it wasn't any of them. It was Mrs. Nolan, my neighbor. She smiled and said, "I baked too much bread. Thought you might like some." Then she noticed the cake, the candle, and her smile faded slightly. "Oh, Grace, it's your birthday, isn't it?" I nodded, trying to sound cheerful. "Yes, but it's nothing special. Just another day." She put the bread on the table and sat down. Without asking, she cut a small piece of cake and said, "Then let's make it special, even if it's just us." And for a few quiet minutes, we ate together, two women sharing silence and crumbs of kindness. Before she left, she looked at me and said, "You know, Grace, when you give your heart away, sometimes it takes time to come back, but it always does." When the door closed behind her, I looked again at the flickering candle. It was almost gone now, but somehow the room didn't feel as empty. Maybe it was her words, or maybe it was the thought that love, no matter how quiet, never truly disappears. I took a deep breath and whispered into the fading flame, "I still love them, always will." The candle went out, and in the darkness, I smiled. Because even if no one said, "Happy birthday," I knew I had lived a life full of love, and that was worth celebrating. If this part of the story touched your heart, you are not alone. Many mothers sit in quiet kitchens, loving their families in silence. If you've ever felt forgotten but still loved anyway, tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe to Voices of Auntie for more family drama stories, stories that remind us that love, even when unseen, still matters. The morning after my birthday felt colder than usual. The sunlight crept in through the curtains, but it couldn't warm the quiet that filled the house. I made tea, as always. Boiled water, added 2 spoons of sugar, set out 3 cups, even though no one would drink them. My hands shook slightly. Maybe I hadn't eaten properly for days. Maybe it was just age catching up to me. I reached for the bread Mrs. Nolan had given me, but before I could take a bite, everything around me blurred. The sound of the kettle faded, and the floor suddenly felt too far away. The last thing I remember was the teacup slipping from my hand, shattering into pieces just like the silence that had surrounded me for too long. When I opened my eyes again, everything was white. The ceiling, the walls, the sheets. I was in a hospital. A nurse smiled softly. "You're lucky, ma'am. Your daughter found you just in time." My daughter? I blinked in confusion. And then I saw her Mia sitting beside me, her eyes red and puffy, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I'm so sorry." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. Instead, I reached out my hand. She grabbed it immediately, as if afraid I might vanish again. "I didn't mean to forget," she cried. "I thought you were okay. I thought you didn't need us anymore." I smiled weakly. "Mia, mothers always need their children, but more than that, we need to know our children still need us." Tears rolled down her face. She nodded, clutching my hand tighter. A few hours later, Daniel arrived. He looked exhausted, still in his office clothes, tie loose, eyes swollen from crying. He stood at the foot of the bed, unable to speak. For years he had been the strong one, the one who never showed emotion. But now, he looked like a little boy again. "Finally," he said quietly. "Mom, I didn't even know you were alone that night." I gave a faint smile. "You've been busy, sweetheart. That's a good thing." He shook his head. "No, Mom, I was blind. I was building everything you told me to the house, the job, the name, but I forgot who I was building it for." His voice broke. "I forgot you." I reached out and touched his face, the same way I used to when he came home from school. "I knew you'd find your way back," I whispered. Later that evening, Leo came rushing in, out of breath. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, and in his eyes, pure fear. "Mom!" he gasped, running to me. "I drove all night when Daniel called. Please don't scare me like that again." I laughed softly, weak but genuine. "You still drive too fast." He hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry for everything. I should have been here. I thought sending money and messages was enough." I looked at my 3 grown children, once so small, now standing before me with guilt written all over their faces. And in that moment, I realized love doesn't vanish. It just sometimes forgets how to show itself. The doctor walked in, smiled kindly, and said, "She's okay now, just exhaustion. What she needs most is rest and company." We all laughed quietly, though our eyes were still wet. "Company," I repeated. I think I could use a little of that. That night, for the first time in years, all three of them stayed. Mia made soup. Daniel fixed the flickering light above the bed. Leo sat by my side, playing soft music on his phone. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Sometimes love doesn't need words, just presence. As I drifted off to sleep, I heard their quiet voices in the room. Mia said, "We'll take turns watching her tonight." Daniel replied, "No, I'll stay. You two get some rest." Leo whispered, "I'll stay too. I don't want to miss anything." I smiled in the dark, my heart full for the first time in a long time. They were there, and that was all I ever wanted. Before I closed my eyes, I said softly, "You see, children, mothers don't want diamonds or houses. We just want you to come home before it's too late." If this story touched you, remember love doesn't disappear. It just sometimes falls asleep until someone wakes it up. If you've ever realized too late how much your mother means to you, comment where you're watching from. Subscribe to Voices of Auntie Tay for more family drama stories that remind us it's never too late to love again. The days after I came home from the hospital felt different. The house, once filled with silence, now had voices again, soft, careful, and full of unspoken guilt. Daniel carried my bags inside and looked around the living room like he was seeing it for the first time. The same cracked vase still stood by the window. The same clock still ticked on the wall. Only now, every sound seemed to echo louder, as if the house was reminding him of all the moments he'd missed. "Mom, you shouldn't be moving around too much," he said, his voice low but firm. I smiled. "Daniel, I've been walking this floor for 30 years. I think I can manage a few more steps." He laughed softly, rubbing his neck, a nervous habit he had since he was a boy. "Yeah, but maybe let me manage them with you this time." That was Daniel, practical, quiet, but finally learning to stay. Mia arrived next, carrying a grocery bag full of fruits and soup ingredients. "Everything organic, Mom," she said proudly. "You're eating healthy from now on." I chuckled. "You think vegetables will fix an old woman's heart?" She looked at me, eyes glistening. "Maybe not, but maybe my being here will." That night, she insisted on cooking dinner. For years, I'd always been the one in the kitchen, the one stirring, seasoning, tasting. Now, I sat at the table, watching her chop vegetables with clumsy hands. She burned the first batch. The second one was too salty. But when she finally served the soup, I smiled through my tears. "It tastes like love," I said. She froze for a second, then started crying too. "I never realized how much you gave, Mom. I just thought you'd always be there." "I am still here," I whispered. "That's the thing about mothers, we don't leave, even when we should." Later, Leo came home. He was carrying a new chair, sturdy, comfortable, with a soft cushion. "For you," he said, setting it near the window, "so you can rest and still see the garden." He didn't say much else. But the way he looked around at the dust on the shelves, the old curtains, the photos on the wall told me everything. He had been gone too long, and he knew it. That night, for the first time in years, all three of them were home. We sat around the dinner table, the same table that had once felt like a battlefield of silence. This time, there was laughter. A little awkward at first, but real. We talked about old memories, about their childhood mischief, about the time Daniel tried to make pancakes and almost burned the kitchen down. For a while, it felt like the years of distance were melting away, one shared smile at a time. After dinner, Daniel took the dishes to the sink. I tried to stop him, but he shook his head. "No, Mom, you've washed enough plates for a lifetime." Mia picked up a broom, humming softly. Leo watered the plants outside. And I just sat there, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. Later, when everyone had gone to bed, I walked quietly through the house. The air smelled like soup and warm light. I looked into each of their rooms, Daniel asleep at the desk, Mia curled up with a blanket, Leo snoring faintly with his phone still in his hand. For the first time in years, the house felt full again. But even in that fullness, I could still sense their guilt, the kind that comes from realizing love was always there, waiting, while they were too busy chasing something else. I didn't want that guilt to stay. So, the next morning, I cooked breakfast again, not out of habit, but out of love. When they woke up, surprised to see me standing by the stove, I said, "Good morning, my loves, I've missed cooking for you." Daniel shook his head, laughing. "Mom, you're supposed to rest." "I am," I said, smiling. "Cooking is my rest." We ate together slowly, peacefully, as sunlight filled the kitchen. No phones, no rushing, Just family." When they finished, I looked at them and said softly, "You don't need to say sorry, just be here. That's all I ever wanted." Mia reached across the table and held my hand. Leo nodded quietly, and Daniel simply said, "We're not leaving again, Mom. Not this time." In that moment, I realized something beautiful. Sometimes love doesn't return through grand gestures or perfect words. Sometimes it comes back through small things. A bowl of soup, a shared breakfast, a quiet promise kept. That night, I wrote in my journal, "They think I gave them everything, but the truth is they gave it all back. Not through gifts, but through presence. And maybe that's the most precious thing of all." If this story reminds you of your own family, you are not alone. Sometimes healing doesn't come with words. It comes with time and love rediscovered. If this story touched you, tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this message of love travels. Subscribe to Voices of Auntie Tay for more family drama stories that heal, forgive, and remind us that love always finds its way home. It had been a few weeks since I left the hospital. The bruises had faded, the medicine bottles were fewer, and laughter, yes, laughter had returned to my house. Every morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of footsteps in the kitchen. Sometimes it was Daniel clumsily trying to fry eggs. Sometimes it was Mia humming while she set the table. And sometimes it was Leo teasing her, saying, "You burn toast even when you're not trying, sis." It was messy, loud, and imperfect, but it was home again. One afternoon, I noticed the three of them whispering in the living room. Every time I walked in, they'd stop talking and pretend nothing happened. They thought I didn't notice. But a mother always knows. "Are you hiding something from me?" I asked one evening with a playful grin. Daniel coughed nervously. "No, Mom. Just work stuff." "Work stuff that makes Mia giggle?" She blushed. "It's nothing, really." And Leo, of course, was the worst liar. Totally nothing. Like super nothing. I laughed. Whatever it was, it made me strangely happy because it had been so long since I'd seen them acting like children again. A week later, on a quiet Saturday morning, Daniel told me to get dressed. "Where are we going?" I asked. He smiled mysteriously. "You'll see." Mia and Leo helped me into the car. The road curved through the town, past the bakery, the park, the church. When we finally stopped, I gasped. It was our old family workshop, the small wooden shed behind the house, where my husband used to fix furniture and carve toys for the kids. I hadn't stepped inside for years. The door creaked open, and sunlight spilled in. Inside, I saw something I never expected. The entire space transformed. The dusty old tools were gone. The walls were painted a soft cream color. There was a new bookshelf by the window, a sewing machine, a little garden outside filled with lavender and daisies. In the center of the room stood a wooden table, smooth, polished, and familiar. It was the same table my husband built when we were newly married, repaired, repainted, reborn. And on it lay a small frame with words carved into the wood. "For the woman who gave us everything, we finally give you peace." I turned around and saw all three of them standing there, smiling through tears. Daniel spoke first, his voice trembling. "We wanted to give you something that isn't just bought with money. Something that comes from us." Mia stepped forward. "This is your space now, Mom. A place to sew, to rest, to write, or just to sit in peace." Leo added softly, "We fixed it together." Even Daniel held a hammer for the first time in his life. Daniel laughed, and I hit my thumb 3 times. We all burst into laughter, the kind of laughter that heals old wounds. I looked around the room again, tears welling up. Every little detail spoke of their love. The floral curtains Mia had sewn herself, the wooden chair Leo built, the old radio Daniel had restored, still playing the soft tune my husband once loved. "How did you do all this?" I whispered. Daniel shrugged, smiling. "We just remembered how much you've done for us. It was about time we did something back." "Daniel." I sat down at the table, running my fingers over the smooth wood. Memories flooded back, my husband sanding it down, little Daniel sitting on top of it, Mia playing with her dolls beside me, Leo drawing on the walls when he thought I wasn't looking. I could almost hear their laughter again, not from memory this time, but from right here, in this very room. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "No, Mom," Mia said gently. "You're beautiful. We just made a room that matches you." For a moment, I couldn't speak. All the years of sacrifice, all the lonely nights, all the silent prayers, they came rushing back, not as pain anymore, but as gratitude. I reached out my hands, and the three of them came closer. We stood there, hugging each other, laughing and crying all at once. That evening, as the sun began to set, we sat together in the new room. Leo brought his guitar, softly strumming a melody. Mia read a few lines from her favorite book. Daniel made tea too strong, but sweet with effort. And I just watched them, my heart overflowing. "You know," I said quietly, "I used to think I gave you my youth. But maybe it was never really gone. Maybe I just gave it to you so you could give it back when I needed it most." They looked at me, confused. "What do you mean, Mom?" Daniel asked. I smiled. "I mean, this love isn't something we lose. It just changes form. I gave you time, care, patience, and now you're giving it back, in your own way." Mia reached over and squeezed my hand. "Then we'll keep giving it, for as long as you need it." "Forever then," Leo added. We all laughed again, the sound soft and real. Outside, the sky turned golden, the kind of light that feels like forgiveness. Later that night, after they had gone to bed, I stayed in that little room by myself. I opened my journal and began to write. This room is more than wood and paint. It's proof that love can grow back in the same soil where pain once lived. I don't need grand gestures or apologies, I just need moments like this. Today, my children gave me something I thought I had lost. The feeling of being seen, loved, and understood. I placed the pen down, looked around, and whispered, "Thank you, my loves. You've given me everything I ever wanted, not comfort, not money, but time. Time with you." I turned off the light and watched the moonlight fall through the window onto the table. The wood gleamed softly the same way it did decades ago, when life was new and noisy. Only this time, the noise had returned in laughter, in footsteps, in love, and I knew, without doubt, that my youth had not been lost, it had simply come home. If this story touched you, remember, love doesn't expire with time. Sometimes, the children you once raised will one day raise you with the same tenderness. If you believe in the power of family and forgiveness, tell me where you're watching from. You're part of this story too. Subscribe to Voices of Auntie for more family drama stories, stories that remind us love always finds its way home. It's been 6 months since that day, the day they gave me back more than I ever asked for. The house feels alive again, not in the way it used to be, not with the chaos of toys or the rush of school mornings, but with a softer kind of life, one filled with voices that stay. Every morning, I hear Mia humming in the kitchen. She's learned how not to burn the toast well, almost. Daniel still brings his laptop home, but now he closes it after dinner. And Leo, he never leaves without saying, "Love you, Mom." The small workshop they built for me has become my favorite place in the world. Sometimes I sew, sometimes I write, sometimes I just sit by the window, watching the lavender sway in the breeze. It smells like peace and like second chances. One Sunday, I decided to do something special. I invited Mrs. Nolan, our kind neighbor, for lunch. The same woman who once shared her bread with me on my forgotten birthday. When she walked in, she gasped. "Oh, Grace," she said, looking around. "Your home feels happy again." I smiled. "It's been healing, just like I have." She nodded, sitting down at the table that Daniel had repaired. The sunlight fell gently on the surface, and for a moment, I could almost see my husband's reflection there, proud, smiling, still here in every corner. We talked for hours about the past, about the children, about how time changes everything and everyone. When she left, she hugged me and whispered, "See? I told you love always finds its way back." I watched her go, heart warm with gratitude. Sometimes angels don't come with wings, they come with loaves of bread. That evening, the house was full again. Mia's kids, my grandkids, ran around the garden, chasing each other with ribbons and laughter. Leo played guitar by the porch, the same melody he strummed that first night after I came home from the hospital. Daniel grilled food outside, pretending to know what he was doing while everyone else secretly watched to make sure he didn't burn anything. I sat in my chair by the door, the one Leo had bought me, watching it all unfold. The smell of food, the sound of laughter, the sight of my family together, it was everything I ever prayed for. "Mom," Mia called, "come join us." I smiled, shaking my head. "You go on, dear. I'm enjoying the view." She came over anyway, knelt beside me, and whispered, "You built this, you know, every piece of it." I looked at her, then at the others, Daniel teasing the kids, Leo laughing until he cried. And I realized she was right. Every late night, every tear, every small act of love. They had all built this moment. Brick by brick, heart by heart. The house that once echoed with silence was now overflowing with life again. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in gold and rose, Daniel turned to me and said, "Mom, do you remember when we were kids and you used to say the house breathes when we laugh?" I nodded, smiling. "I do." He gestured around, his eyes soft. "Then listen, it's breathing again." I closed my eyes and listened. The giggles, the music, the clinking of dishes, the heartbeat of home. And in that moment, I knew my loneliness had never been wasted. It had simply been waiting for this day. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, I sat in my little workshop under the soft lamplight and opened my journal. I turned to a fresh page and wrote slowly, carefully. They once gave me loneliness, but now they give me laughter. I gave them my youth, every heartbeat, every sacrifice, every prayer, and they returned it in the only way that truly matters, with love. This house has aged, just like me, but both of us still stand. Not because time was kind, but because love never left. I put down the pen and looked at the family photo on the table, all of us together, arms around each other, eyes bright. Below it, Mia had written a small caption, "Home isn't a place, it's the people who never give up on each other." I traced the words with my finger, smiling through tears. Yes, I thought, that's exactly it. If this story touched your heart, remember, you are not alone. Love doesn't fade, it just waits quietly for the right moment to return. Tell me where you're watching from, because every place with love is a home. Subscribe to Voices of Auntie Tay for more family drama stories, stories that remind us forgiveness heals and love always finds its way home.